Welcome back to another explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a jarring contradiction that's just hiding in plain sight in modern hiring practices. I mean, imagine finding out your career has a literal expiration date. Crazy, right? Well, we're going to examine some fascinating and frankly shocking source material brought to light by data detective Noreen Lewis. It's about a concept that affects almost every professional at some point, yet it kind of remains completely in the shadows. We're talking about the literal expiry date placed on talent, or global workplace ageism, an issue that is silently filtering out highly qualified people before they even get a foot in the door.
Okay, listen to this exact requirement. You must be no older than 32 years of age by December 31st, 2026. Now, you might be thinking this is some hypothetical scenario, or maybe an outdated rule from 50 years ago. But nope, this is an exact word-for-word requirement from a recent job posting for a data analytics professional at a real bank in Barbados. Just let that sink in for a second. This organization has explicitly set a countdown clock on a candidate's viability. Basically, if you cross that completely arbitrary threshold of 32 years old, your resume goes straight into the virtual shredder. Now, here's where the sheer cognitive dissonance of this whole situation really kicks in. On the very next line of that exact same job posting, the bank proudly declares, "We are an equal opportunity employer and values diversity." The contradiction here is absolutely striking. On one hand, you have a hard, exclusionary age limit. On the other, a corporate pledge to diversity and equal opportunity. You really have to ask yourself, how do these two statements end up right next to each other in a modern job listing?
So what does this all mean? Well, the crucial takeaway from our source here is pretty simple. Equal opportunity absolutely cannot coexist with age restrictions. It's a fundamental logical flaw. An organization simply cannot genuinely champion diversity while at the same time excluding a massive pool of qualified professionals based solely on a number. You know, diversity isn't just about the metrics we comfortably talk about. It includes age and experience too. When a company screens out everyone over a certain age, they're actively dismantling the very equal opportunity they claim to support.
Let's think about that number for a minute. 32. What does a 32-year-old actually represent in the workforce? As our source points out, a 32-year-old brings incredible value to the table. They bring lived experience. They bring resilience. They bring a level of expertise that's been tested and refined over a decade of working. This is a demographic that is highly capable and totally ready to drive innovation. But, you see, the problem isn't the 32-year-old. The problem is what happens to the person who is 33 or 35.
Right, because if 32 is the ceiling, consider the 40-year-old. A 40-year-old data analyst is likely at the absolute peak of their craft. They've seen industry trends come and go, they know how to solve complex problems efficiently, and their technical skills are perfectly matched by their strategic thinking. Yet because of that arbitrary age ceiling we just talked about, the market quietly tells them, you're already too old to contribute. Imagine being at the literal height of your professional abilities, only to be told your talent has expired.
And, this brings us to a much larger systemic issue. This one job posting in Barbados, it isn't just an isolated incident, it's symptomatic of a massive global blind spot. Ageism in the workplace is a worldwide issue, but what makes it particularly insidious is just how unchallenged it is. It's become entirely normalized as a standard hiring practice. It's written into job descriptions, and it's literally coded into automated hiring algorithms, where resume screeners are programmed to instantly reject candidates with graduation dates or birthdays before a certain year. And yet, we barely even talk about it.
Our source material really highlights that this blind spot is particularly prevalent in developing countries. Across the Caribbean, Latin America, and Africa, this deeply ingrained ageism frequently goes completely unquestioned. Actually, in these regions, placing age limits on job postings is often treated as just business as usual. Culturally and systemically, the pushback against this specific type of discrimination just hasn't gained the necessary momentum, which allows these exclusionary practices to thrive right in plain sight.
So this raises a really vital question for all of us. How do we actually fix this? If we're truly serious about creating inclusive workplaces in the developing world, and honestly, globally, what concrete steps are required? We can't just acknowledge the cognitive dissonance, we have to actively dismantle it. So let's look at the roadmap provided in our source material for driving real structural change. The roadmap requires us to first call out discriminatory hiring language loudly, especially when it comes from respected international institutions like banks. From there, we absolutely must push for explicit protective legislation that shields workers from age-based discrimination. At the same time, we've got to actively work to remove archaic laws that allow these practices to continue legally. And ultimately, on a cultural level, we have to recognize that talent, drive, and innovation simply have no expiry date. These 4 pillars are absolutely crucial for completely overhauling how we view the aging workforce.
Well, the good news here is that international frameworks actually already exist. The International Labor Organization maintains the NATLEX database, which includes international registries specifically designed to protect workers. Specifically, Act 11088 is a part of this global framework aimed at ensuring fair labor practices. So, the International Foundation, it's already there.
And looking locally at the origin of our job posting example, Barbados actually has the Employment Prevention of Discrimination Act 2020-26, also known as Bill 477. This legislation is explicitly designed to protect workers. But as the source passionately stresses, merely having this law on the books isn't enough. It desperately needs to be enforced. As Noreen Lewis says in the source text, if you didn't know, well, now you know. The tools for protection are there. The breakdown is happening in accountability and enforcement.
I want to take a quick second to focus on the human element here and speak directly to any professional watching this explainer who's ever been screened out by an algorithm before even having a chance to show their worth. Your experience matters. Your age is not your limitation. The years you've spent mastering your craft don't diminish your value. They amplify it. Talent does not spoil. Drive does not expire.
I'm going to leave you with this final, really provocative thought from our source material. How long must we as citizens turn a blind eye, pretending that ageism doesn't exist? Yes, the job market is tough, and finding the right role is definitely challenging. But you have to know your worth. It's time for companies to do better, but that corporate accountability starts with our refusal to look the other way. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll see you next time.